We're getting into Matthew chapter 26, which is a rather heavy chapter. This is a pivotal chapter in the gospel recounting several significant events leading up to the crucifixion of Jesus. Let's get right in. In verses 1 through 5, Jesus predicts his impending crucifixion, while the chief priests and elders conspire to arrest and kill him, but not during the Passover to avoid public unrest. Then in verses 6 through 13, at the home of Simon the leper, a woman anoints Jesus with expensive perfume. Though the disciples criticize this as wasteful, Jesus commends her, saying that she has prepared him for burial, and her act of love will be remembered wherever the gospel is preached. Then in verses 14 through 16, Judas, one of the 12 disciples, approaches the chief priests and agrees to betray Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. Jesus then shares the Passover meal with his disciples. During the meal, he predicts his betrayal and institutes the Lord's Supper, sharing bread and wine as symbols of his body and blood. It says, starting in verse 26, Jesus took a loaf of bread and asked God's blessing on it. Then he broke it in pieces and gave it to the disciples, saying, "Take it and eat it, for this is my body." And he took a cup of wine and gave thanks to God for it. He gave it to them and said, "Each of you drink from it, for this is my blood, which seals the covenant between God and his people. It is poured out to forgive the sins of many." Jesus then foretells that all the disciples will fall away, and specifically that Peter will deny him 3 times before the rooster crows, which Peter then insists that he will not. Jesus then goes to the Garden of Gethsemane in verses 36 through 46 to pray, expressing deep anguish and asking the Father that, if possible, the cup of suffering be removed. He submits to God's will and finds the disciples sleeping multiple times, urging them to stay awake and pray. He says in verse 41, "Keep alert and pray, otherwise temptation will overpower you. For though the spirit is willing enough, the body is weak." Judas arrives with the crowd to arrest Jesus, betraying him with a kiss, despite Peter's attempt to defend him by striking the ear of the high priest's servant. Jesus rebukes violence and emphasizes that scripture must be fulfilled, saying, "Those who use the sword will be killed by the sword. Don't you realize that I could ask my Father for thousands of angels to protect us, and he would send them instantly? But if I did, how would the scriptures be fulfilled that describe what must happen now?" Then in verse 57 through 68, Jesus is taken to the high priest and is falsely accused. Though initially silent against false testimony, he declares himself to be the Messiah when adjured by God, leading to charges of blasphemy. While Jesus is being tried, spit on, and beaten up by the crowd, Peter is outside in the courtyard. 3 times he is recognized as a follower of Jesus, and 3 times he denies it, fulfilling Jesus' prediction. The rooster crows, and Peter weeps bitterly upon realizing his actions. Throughout this chapter, themes of betrayal, sacrifice, and fulfillment of God's plan are woven into the narrative, highlighting Jesus' path to the cross and his unwavering obedience to his mission.